Good morning, everyone. I think we'll make a start on this breakout session, although I know it's been quite long queues for the coffee. So this is one of the first breakout sessions, and it's all about giving voice to farmers from practice to proof in carbon farming. First of all, I'd just like to welcome you all here, and also I think I'd like to pay tribute to the fantastic organisation of this conference. What's going on? Can you go back? Sorry, I didn't expect that to happen. Right. What's going on?
Autoplay.
It's on autoplay?
Yes, maybe.
What can we do about that? I apologise. We thought we'd practice this and it was all going to be great. Can you stop the autoplay?
Okay.
That's it. Thank you. So I'd like to thank really the organisers of this conference, but also to revisit a few of the sentences that Kirsten Dunlop gave us in her opening address, because I think the very fact that we have got farmers here from Italy, from Greece and the UK producing very different foods, and we've collaborated in order to produce this session today, is very much in the spirit of the whole point of this summit, which is for people to exchange ideas and to learn and to challenge ourselves. I also wanted to just mention from Kirsten's really very, I think, passionate and very eloquent presentation. I'll just wait, let people sit down. I still got in my head that slide, and I hope you have too, the slide where she showed the acceleration of emissions up till to date, and stated that if we carry on, the planet will be unlivable. And then I'll just draw it. So it was like that. We're about here. And over the next 10 years, we've got to get down if we are to avoid, or basically to have a planet that's livable in the future. And for that to happen, she's doing it again, it implies a reduction in emissions of 60%, which is quite significant. But also, as Kurt Vandenberg stated, carbon removals are going to be critical for our future. I'm going to keep doing this. And as farmers, we all have that possibility. All four of us are farmers sitting here, and we are all aware of our ability to be able to really support carbon removals through how we manage our soils in the future. So myself, I'll just very briefly introduce myself. I'm Liz Bowles. I'm the Chief Exec of the Farm Carbon Toolkit, FCT. We're a UK-based organisation, and we were set up by farmers, for farmers, over 15 years ago, with a very clear mission to support farmers and growers to understand where their greenhouse gas emissions were coming from, and and supporting them both to reduce emissions and increase rates of carbon sequestration. We knew 16 years ago that this would have to happen, and we've been supporting farmers to do that ever since through our team of specialist advisors who work side by side with farmers, and also through our farm carbon assessment tool, which is called the Farm Carbon Calculator, which calculates whole farm carbon balance, both emissions and sequestration at farm level. And it's freely available to all farmers to use. That effectively is our community interest, that we make our calculator free for farmers to use. Myself as a farmer, I farm in the southwest of England. I farm sheep. In fact, I've just about finished lambing now, so I left how to feed all the animals that need a bit of attention while I'm away, so I'm hoping they do it. This is very annoying. I feel like I'm playing a battle with it. I'll leave it be and see what happens. What you can see is if you want to ask us questions, go onto Slido, either scan the QR code or put that code in. What's going to happen is if you've got questions during the presentation, Gabrielle and my colleague from Life VitiCaSe and from ImageLine will garner the questions, and he'll send them through to me on WhatsApp, so it will look amazingly seamless, but that's what we're doing. If you haven't got a mobile phone and you want to ask a question, you can still put your hand up. So the final thing I wanted to say by way of introduction, and it was very much sort of in the spirit of Kirsten Dunlop talking about the power of stories. And for farmers, I would say probably we're more concerned about soil health and improving our soils than we are necessarily about carbon sequestration per se. And also about how, as farmers, we can provide a home for everything that would like to call our farm home. And what that means is thinking about the wildlife on your farm as well as the food that you're producing. And for me, I've made it very much a sort of a mission to think about all the wildlife, both plants within the soil and biodiversity, that would like to be on my farm, and have I got something for it to eat and somewhere for it to live all year round. Because if you don't provide that, you cannot have biodiversity. It's simply not possible. The plants and animals will go elsewhere or they'll die. It's very simple, actually. So I think without further ado, I would like, well, you've probably seen all the panelists, but I'll show you again. So these are our panelists this morning. He's not going to let me do it. We've got Andrew Brewer, a dairy farmer from Cornwall. We've got Carlo Di Biasi, a wine producer from Italy, and Eustathios Stathopoulos from Greece, an olive oil producer. And I was thinking this morning, having breakfast, I've got the three kind of liquid food producers, which we are all massively dependent upon. So it's lovely to have us all on this panel. So without further ado, Andrew, your slide is there.
Let's hope it stays. Good morning, everyone. It's a great honour to come to this part of the world. It's quite away from home. So I farm in the very far southwest point of Cornwall, sticking out, and the next stop is America. So we're a very maritime climate. Water, we were talking about water shortages earlier on. Kirsten was mentioning water shortages. We have 58 days of continuous rain at the start of this year. I've got plenty of water if you want some at the moment. So anyway, so I was lucky enough to be approached and to be part of this Farm Net Zero topic, which was a British National Lottery funded project for 5 years. It partnered with Farm Carbon Toolkit, Dutchy College, the County Council as well, and it was all about reducing our carbon footprint, but also getting community involved as well. Ooh, could you just go back?
Yeah, I'll click your finger on it.
So anyway, so
I don't know what it's doing.
So we're dairy farmers predominantly, a grass-based system, and we finish all our beef as well. So we really focus on getting as much milk from our own produced forage and trying to buy in as little feed as we can. We work with the soils. We used to be quite more conventional farm, using a lot more fertilizer than we have, but we've actually eliminated all nitrogen fertilizer on the dairy platform, concentrating on the use of clovers and understanding soil health, moving really from a chemical-based farming system to a biological-based system.
It's given up.
We've gone now, so my notes have gone. So there we go. So
You'll come back.
So we have found over the 5 years of the project, we've done various projects, from 1 year projects to even 5 year projects, and the value of that 5 year project to get longer term solutions and do longer term monitoring of carbon levels. So one glaring thing, and we're starting to talk a lot about carbon removals, is now I've got absolute hard data on our farm. We know what our emissions are from the Farm Carbon Toolkit, measuring emissions, but we have hard data now on how much carbon we're removing, and we're removing 4 times the amount of carbon by increasing our organic matter levels of our soil than we're emitting. But that at the present methodology isn't being accounted for. So it's really important that policymakers understanding that we include short-term carbon removals as well, because it's absolutely key. Yes, we might be cycling a lot, but as long as we're gaining and improving organic matters, it is going to help the climate long term. It's like your bank account. They only want to talk about long-term bank accounts, 20-year bonds or whatever that you can't touch and can't access. We have to start talking and thinking about our current accounts that we're accessing all the time. We found now our carbon footprint is about 0.67, I think it was. Yeah. UK average is 1.2. The global average is 2.5. And we've got to start thinking that petrol has a lower carbon footprint than milk on a global scale, and farmers, and I'm a farmer and I work very closely with Arla, our milk supplier, and the farmer members are so frustrated that how can it be that petrol that we're digging out of the ground processing, where we can produce a natural product such as milk, has a higher footprint. And it's really questionable and hard for farmers to understand that. Farmers are stewards of the countryside, and we're stewards, and we only look after it for the next generation. The majority of farmers are family farmers, and they only look at it for a short time. And we're already thinking, how can we make it better for the next generation? Okay? And being involved with this project, working with, I think there were 70 farms involved. It was a really sad day. We just finished, and we had our final conference, and it was a really sad time. There was almost, it was almost tearful to think that we'd come to a finish and was like, where next? And we've all got the appetite to try things and do different things to increase our understanding, but also to help policymakers understand. So I think that probably covers most things I want to do. So
thanks, Andrew. We'll hear. Yeah. And next, if the technology will allow, can we move on to Carlo's slide, please? The next slide. And Carlo, would you like to introduce yourself and your role in this?
Hello. Good morning, everyone. No. Hello, good morning everyone. I am Carlo De Biasi, I am agronomist, and I am in charge as general manager of San Felice Wine Estate. I am wine producer in Tuscany region in Italy, and we have 3 estates in 3 different appellations of the Tuscany region, like Chianti Classico, like Brunello di Montalcino, and also in Bolgheri. In the last 5 years, we are engaged in a transformation of our vineyard management. We believe that the new model of vineyard management, the right model for us is regenerative viticulture. We are organic farmer, and in the last 2 years we are engaged in a live VitiCaSe project to develop and share the model of regenerative viticulture, like minimum tillage of soil, cover crops, adoption of the cover crops to preserve the organic matter in the soil, to preserve and improve the capacity of the soil to stock the water during the winter, and to mitigate the effect of the climate change. This project is very important for us to improve our quality of the wine in face of climate change, to produce better quality organic wine for the future, and we believe that is the right model for our future, for produce better quality wine. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Carlo. And Stathis, if you'd like to introduce yourself, your farm, and your role in the project you're involved with.
Yes. Good morning from me. I don't know if you can hear me. My name is Stathis Stathopoulos. I'm an agronomist and I'm a farmer also. I'm here first like a farmer today, and I'm very happy to participate in this great conversation. So, my farm, we cultivate olive trees for olive oil. The farm, as I said, located in Greece, in Messenia, is in Peloponnese. And this year, the farm's it is a 60 years old. It's a 60 years old farm. So, I want to mention something. We discuss about carbon, we discuss about emissions, we discuss about everything. In Greece, we have very small producers, so it's extra difficult to them to adopt new practices, new technologies, and the most important is the most of them, they don't know about the carbon. They don't really know. I don't want to say they don't really care, because first they have to know, and then they have to decide if they care or not. I want to say also, I participate in the project called Climate Farm Demo. That project it starts with a lot of farms around Europe. In Greece, we have around 60 farms. I am charged for the 16 olive trees farm. So, with this project, first of all, we try to communicate and to make the farmers to understand what the carbon says. And after, we try to give them some practices, to use some new technologies, and how to use these technologies, so to be able to reduce the carbon. So, I want to say something more. I think the most important is the mindset. Excuse me for my English, I'm trying it.
Perfect.
It's the mindset of the producers. Most of the producers are in they don't want to change your mindset. You know, they started to cultivate it before 30 years, 25 years, depends on the producers, and they keep continuing to produce just like then. We have to make them to understand when then things change, and the things are totally changed, I think. So, I don't have something else to say.
No,
thank you.
Thank you very much, Stathis. And actually, Stathis, you've really sort of set the scene brilliantly for where we're starting. So I'd like us all to sort of settle in for just a comfortable conversation. There we go. I'll just explain again. I think in a minute I'm going to ask whoever's up there to turn it off, because we don't need any more slides. It can stay there as long as it doesn't keep moving. I have no control now. So really, it's a conversation between us all. And last week, we all met online to talk about the kind of questions we thought would be helpful for this session. So we're going to sort of start having a conversation between us. But then if you've got questions, please put them on Slido. Or if you haven't got a phone, just put your hand up. Because I think, we will do that as well. And just assuming everybody's got a smartphone is probably not reasonable. But in a way, when Stathis started to talk about carbon farming and how it's perceived in Greece, I think it's something where many of us who sort of work in this bubble of climate and sustainability and carbon farming, we forget that probably for most of the farm businesses, it's not something they think about every day. So I'd just like to ask Carlo and Andrew just to tell us a little bit from their own experience in their countries how carbon farming is understood in Italy and in England, you know, and how it is. So I don't know who wants to go first. Carlo, perhaps you'd like to start. I'm not sure if that's going to work.
Okay. Right. In the last year, many producers are involved in regenerative viticulture project because there is. I am also president of Lien de la Vigne Association based in Paris. And since 5 years, we talk about regenerative viticulture and also carbon farming. Our association is very involved in this project because there is many producers are interested to understand what is carbon farming, what is regenerative viticulture, and in the last 2 years in Tuscany, you can say more and more farmers, they make some practices.
Yeah. Okay, lovely, thank you.
Yeah.
And over the life of the project, do you think the farmers who are involved have changed their understanding of carbon farming?
Yes.
Yeah.
This project, Life VitiCaSe project, we are 3 estates in Tuscany.
Yes.
To improve different practices of regenerative viticulture, and the focus is share the experience to the other farmer in not also in Tuscany, but in Italy and also now in France now.
Okay, that's really helpful. And I think if I turn to Andrew now, because as Andrew mentioned in his introduction, he's been involved in the Farm Net Zero project in Cornwall now for the past 5 years. And as he said, it's working with over 70 farmers in Cornwall, as well as doing sort of outreach across the main conferences in the UK as well. And Andrew, I don't know if you can cast your mind back to 5 years ago to think about how the farmers, when they set off on the journey with Farm Net Zero, how they thought and felt then, and how perhaps they think and feel now, 5 years on?
That's quite a difficult question, to put it politely anyway.
Well, go on, so how were they at first?
At first, to start, you know, there was a lot of hesitancy amongst farmers of what are we doing? You know, what is this regenerative farming? And there needs to be really clear messaging of, you know, we're talking regenerative farming, we're talking carbon farming, there's organic. It's like, what do you want us to do? I mean, they need clarity. And I think, you know, we've come a long way, and being the demo farm for the dairy side of it, there was a arable demo farm and also a sheep and beef farm as well. And to see how we've all developed and how it's pulled people along, and it's well over probably between 400 and 500 farmers got involved and came visiting as well. And it is changing minds. My involvement with Arla as well, I sit on some global committees for sustainable agriculture, and carbon farming is definitely coming up the agenda. Farmers have a better understanding. Most dairy farmers in the UK now would have a carbon footprint, so they know what their emissions are, but now they're starting to think, okay, how can we reduce them? So we have to start adopting practices that are going to reduce our carbon footprint. And it could be from breeding cows to planting herbal lace, anything they can. We have to look at all the tools within our toolbox to be able to reduce our emissions to any, like, the extent that's been talked about today.
Lovely. Thank you, Andrew. And it's worth sort of mentioning that within the Farm Net Zero project, it was very much also seen as a community project. So it involves schools, school children, many people, in fact, it kind of mirrored the living lab process within Mission Soil, although we didn't call it that because I think we started even before the living lab started back in 2020. So I think probably many of you gathered here will be wondering what kind of farming practices are we talking about? What is it that constitutes carbon farming? So I think probably the first thing is to ask all of you what practices you are adopting. And I know that you're at very different stages in terms of how long you've been how long ago you made these changes. But if you could each of you say just briefly the kind of practices, and from your experience to date, how effective are they? And I think by terms of effectiveness, it's very much, I'm just reminded again of Kirsten Dunlop's Rubik's Cube. I thought that was a brilliant analogy, this idea that it's all connected. And so really, I'll leave it up to you to think about what effectiveness means. So, Stathis.
Yes. Like I said, we participate in the Climate Farm Demo Project. The project is running the last 3 years, and we have also, if I remember, we have also 4 years. So we start to use some new practices. First of all, practices such as we started to use slow release fertilizers and fertilizers with nitrification inhibitors. So this is one practice we start to use now after the project started. And one second, it's about the irrigation. We started to adopt new irrigation systems with drip irrigation, as you know. For sure, they certainly vary by region and the crop. In olive oil trees, we started to adopt these new practices, and we're waiting. Now we are in the phase we're waiting to see the first results with the project also.
Okay. Thank you very much. Stathis, I don't know which way to look.
Yes.
Carlo, would you like to explain about what practices you're changing on your farm?
Okay. We are organic farmer, but the first activities was focused on the soil, on the preserve the health of the soil, using cover cropping to improve the organic matter in the soil, to preserve the capacity of the soil to stock the water, and to preserve the microbiology of the soil. And the second are minimum soil tillage to combine cover cropping in the vineyard and minimum tillage. In the last 20 years, we have lost the soil fertility, the organic matter in the soil, and also for us it's very important to improve the quantity of the organic matter in the soil, to equilibrate the vineyard and to produce a little bit more than in the past, and but also very important is the quality of the grape, because in this year the climate change are affected the quality of the grapes, because we are dry period and period with a lot of rainy, and the quality of the grape is not so good in the last year. But with regenerative practice, we believe that we can improve the quality of the grape, but the focus is the soil.
Lovely, thank you, Carlo. And I think it's an interesting point you make there about the fact that as farmers, we're kind of facing a moving target. The climate is already changing, and farmers are very much at the forefront of that change. So the innovation that we're practicing has to meet the changes as well as what we thought it was going to be. And Andrew, I know for you, you've been, I think it was a while ago now that you first adopted some practices. So it'd be interesting to hear about what practices you've adopted and what effect they've had.
Okay, yeah, thank you. So yeah, we've done many things over a lot of years, probably over 12 years now from previous research projects that we've been involved with. But our region of the UK grows a lot of field scale vegetables, brassicas, cabbages, cauliflowers, that sort of thing. And we were thinking with our grass-based system of livestock, that's a key thing of having livestock within that cycle. And we were building organic matter, and potatoes particularly, and these green crops were given a bad image, and we wanted to prove that was it as bad as they say it was, or if not. So we actually incorporated vegetables into our rotation, and then we've trialed that, and we've monitored soil level, soil organic matter and losses, and then soil stability after the crop. We've put mixed species swords into cabbages to try to prevent runoff and maintain nutrients in the soil. And we've seen some massive changes in the soil texture, and also even in our wider indexes in that our pHs have actually come up without any use of lime. Our phosphate is becoming more available because the soil is healthier, and that's been a real eye-opener for I think all the farmers involved, just to see the difference. And that again comes back to that 5-year project. You could see the difference, and you know we had farmers come in the first year to when we finished. They understood that change.
And actually, just following on from that, Andrew, this whole thing this morning, I think there was talk about need to support the transition to reduce the sort of risk for farmers. In your experience, is it necessary for someone else external to farmers to bring in some further support to help that transition? And I'll ask all of you, but if you could start, Andrew.
I think if you're motivated yourself to adopt that change, again, it comes back to if your farm business is in the black, not the red, you can then adopt new practices. But if you're under really a lot of pressure and your business is running in the red, you've got problems. You cannot adopt these different things. And there are now, the UK banks are actually funding, and you can get subsidised finance for green projects now, and you can get a better rate. So you know they are coming on board to help. I think an interesting thing as well is the nutrient density thing of food, and how regenerative agriculture and having a healthier soil actually is increasing the nutrient density of the food produced, be it cauliflower or whatever, or even down to the milk that we're producing and the milk and beef that we're producing. And I think that's another key thing that potentially is being missed by regenerative at the moment.
No, thanks on that. Certainly nutrient density is becoming more and more important. I mean, I think what I do next, because it kind of links to what I've just asked Andrew, but for Carlo and Stathis, could you perhaps sort of talk about the barriers that you've identified in your countries so far to carbon farming practice adoption? I don't know whether that's costs, culture, views, etc., but perhaps just to sort of talk about those barriers. And Carlo, if I come to you first.
I think that we can see the barrier because it's the mindset for the farmer, and the costs are not increased a little bit, but it's no very expensive to adopting practical like regenerative viticulture. But I think the problem is all the mindset of the farmer.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thanks, Carlo. And Stathis, for you?
Yes, I will start with mindset. As I said, I think it's really important for us. And second, I can say it's the costs. As I said, we have small farmers, so it's difficult to adopt these technologies, these new practices. And something else, technical expertise is also a significant problem. You know, there are no individuals with sufficient knowledge of the subject to ensure the adoptions of all these practices. Farmers, they don't have the access to this knowledge. So I think this is also important.
Okay. And actually, Stathis, that really sort of takes me on, because all of you, all three farmers here are involved with 3 projects which are addressing that knowledge gap as part of them. And certainly, from my knowledge at FCT, numbers don't make things change. We provide a calculator which makes it free for farmers to work out where they are, but actually it's a different thing we're asking farmers to do now. It's not about maximising profit at all costs. It's actually about making that Rubik's Cube work, which is a whole new ballgame. And so I guess my next question was really just to ask you about how the projects you've been involved with in Climate Farm Demo, Live VitiCaSe and Farm Net Zero, how they have helped you and your business to transition to more sustainable farming systems. Because I think it'd be really helpful for everybody in the audience to know, because I think we've got 3 examples of effective projects here. So, Andrew, over to you first.
So probably 10 years ago, I was all about maximisation and utilisation of assets. And I think that the project really has made me focus, and we've gone to optimisation and the optimum use of your assets to make them stay, whereas maximisation, you know, it's almost like driving a Formula 1 car. They blow up. I just want to farm with a Toyota pickup that doesn't break down. And if we can have that stable system going forward, it has to be better for all.
And how has the project itself sort of supported you in that change?
It's been a massive support. The opportunity to work with people with bigger brains than yourself and better knowledge to broaden your own knowledge and other people's has been immensely driven for me, and that then gives us opportunities to come to Venice to speak about things, and it also gives me the knowledge to go forward. And when our milk buyer is trying to bring in things, I can challenge them. Then we can challenge them with documented evidence. And you know, going forward, we have to have documentation of carbon, of business resilience to get people to adopt that.
Thanks, Andrew. And I should say that I think you touched on a really important point there, because for farmers to be able to have their voice heard, and it's very much it's the title of this panel. Actually, farmers do have something really important to contribute with their customers, but having that evidence to be able to feel confident that when they stand up and say something, they'll be listened to is really important. And certainly, from my experience of Farm Net Zero, it's provided that level of information that simply wasn't there before. But Carlo, over to you. How's Live VitiCaSe helped you?
Yes, for Live VitiCaSe is very important for us to share the experience and also to measure the performance, environmental and agronomic performance. It's very important to measure what happened and the result of our practices.
Yeah, lovely, thank you. I think, Andrew, you just want to say something very briefly to add.
Just to add to that, farmers can bring a huge practicality to academics. I think that mustn't be underestimated as well. You know, farmers can actually add to the conversation to bring reality.
Yeah, very, very wise. Stathis, for you, how has the Climate Farm demo?
Yes, I totally agree with all this. First of all, with Climate Farm demo, the project I'm involved with, the Climate Farm demo, it has definitely helped. First of all, raising awareness and knowledge. For me, is the most important. As I said, we learn from this project. And another thing is, when you are involved in this project, we communicate, you speak with people with a little bit different mindset. So, when we discuss about the carbon, when we discuss about what Climate Farm demo does, it is easier for us to understand all this categorization. You know, via the project, we communicate, and the farmers, they start to understand what carbon is, climate is. A lot of farmers, they don't know about the climate. They don't know. They don't care. That's for me.
Yeah. It's not number one priority.
Knowledge and awareness.
Okay. No, thanks, Stathis. And no panel with farmers would ever be complete with asking questions about practical difficulties. I've never met a section of society which is more practical than farmers. So from your points of view, because I think it's really helpful to know what the sort of practical difficulties are that you've encountered when you've been changing practice on your farms. So I don't know, Stathis, if you want to start this one off, the sort of practical things that you found difficult.
Practical things. The cost? I think it's the most important. We discuss in the coffee break, and when you speak to a farmer, in my region in Greece, the first thing is how they reduce their cost and how they increase their profits. So that's the main for them. For good or not for good, this is the truth. I think this is the main problem for me, for my country, if I answer the question.
Okay, fair enough. What about, Carlo, from your point of view, practical sort of challenges you face when adopting these practices?
I think that it's very important to adopt this practice in my region, in Tuscany, for improve the quantity, also the production, but for improve our revenue is important. The cost, but also the revenue, and produce a right quantity of the grape, a right quantity of the wine. So when you have some cost more, but the result is a good quantity of and quality of grape, is not so important for us, the cost of these practices.
Yeah, okay, thank you. If you want to come and take a seat, you're very welcome over there. If you want to come and sit down, please do. Yeah, so Andrew, for you, practical difficulties in adopting the practices?
Convincing my wife, probably.
Did you all hear that?
It's either that, you know, a lot of other families, you're working with an older generation that don't want to change because they don't want to change something that's worked for the last 2 or 3 generations potentially. But I think I was lucky to have forward-thinking parents probably. But intergenerational thing would be a big thing, I think.
Yeah, and I'll just add to that. I don't know if many of you come from farming backgrounds in your countries, but certainly in the UK, farmers typically like to see tidy fields. By that I mean no weeds. So generally more regenerative farming is not as tidy. It's a bit like Kirsten was saying, it's messy. And there can be quite a lot of pressure to tidy up your fields, which is, you know, runs counter to regenerative, but it's that mindset thing. And the more people there are who are doing it that way, the less the pressure is. So, you know, as we build momentum and there's more people doing messy farming, I think there'll be less pressure to go out and top it, which is effectively what happens now. So thank you very much, because we're starting to get the questions coming in on Slido, so thank you. And in fact, you preempted one that I was going to ask, which, now I've lost it, of course. It was really to do with are there any financial benefits to the practices you've adopted in addition to improvements in soil health and greater levels of biodiversity? And I guess, you know, that's probably aimed at all of you, but it may be too early in some countries to be able to comment on that. So what are the financial benefits to you?
So we used to purchase 29 tons of nitrogen every month. I've not purchased any for 6 years.
Speak louder.
Sorry. Yep. So we used to purchase 29 tons of nitrogen fertilizer every month. I've not purchased anything for 6 years. Am I worried about the fertilizer prices going up? No, I'm not. Okay, so that's a big difference to what's saving. And production-wise, we've dropped from about 18 tons of dry matter per hectare down to about 15. But the nutrient density of that, we're actually producing more milk from less cows. So there's wide-ranging benefits. It's massive cost saving and brings resilience into our business. Sorry.
No, thank you, Andrew. And I think that's sort of really concrete testament to what can be done. And it's been very much focused around grazing strategies and planting herbal lays, hasn't it? Yeah. Which, you know, it's quite straightforward, but and actually what I would say to that is very often for farmers, it's about thinking outside the box and not necessarily taking advice from the people who sell you products, because they've got a huge interest in selling those products. Okay, what I'd like to do now is to sort of move on a little bit to talk about from your, and we'll dot about a bit, but somebody's asked the question about carbon certification and the expenses around it and how you manage those. And I know that, you know, Kurt was talking about this morning and the need for carbon removals, and with the CRCF regulations coming in to potentially reward farmers for removing carbon. I've just wondered how you found, or indeed if you've even got involved yet in this certification process, how you found it, if you have embarked upon it, and actually if you haven't, why is that the case? Because I think probably it's the minority of farmers who are embarking upon this. So perhaps, I'll start with you, Stathis, because I don't think you have.
Yes, I don't.
Yeah, if you could say why not, that would be great.
Because I think we are at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
We are, in Greece, we are really in the beginning of all this adoption of new practices, of this carbon.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's going to be a difficult part, from my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't want to say from now if it's difficult or not difficult. We'll see. I think it's going to be difficult.
Okay. Okay, thanks, Dathis. And what about you, Carlo, from your experience? Have you embarked upon this yet, or yet to?
It's too early to speak about the carbon credit certification now. And today, for a smaller producer like us, or medium producer like us, is too expensive to certificate the carbon credits at this moment. And we wait the new regulation during this year, and now we speak about next year.
Okay, that's really interesting. So I think the perspective from the UK is going to be very different, because I was thinking this morning, reflecting really about the structures you've got in place within the EU to focus on climate change and agriculture and CRCF. I'm not sure that in the UK CRCF will necessarily apply, so I think it'd be really interesting to hear what Andrew's got to say about his activity in this area. So Andrew, if you could explain what you're doing.
I hope that CRCF happens. So we've actually sampled the whole farm on 2 hectare sections at 2 different depths down to half a metre. We have that data, and they all say about the cost of this, but you integrate it with soil samples for good farming practice, for your pH, for your magnesium, your calcium levels. Realistically, you're only adding organic matter percentages and bulk density into that testing. So we're almost viewing it as part of better farming practice. And then by understanding what else we're short of in our soil and making the soil more healthy, we can increase carbon faster. So yes, it costs money to sample the farm. We've done the whole farm twice, but we're at the stage that we're virtually verified now. And do I sell them? Do I don't? That's another question for another day. But having the data there is actually helping us farm far more effectively and efficiently. And so I think potentially making soil sampling, including bulk density, organic matter, could be just a case of fact that we should adopt it. That's just my probably extreme view.
No, thank you. And you were saying when we were travelling over yesterday about needing to look about additionality in terms of the farming practices that you're going to be adopting in order to be able to potentially sell carbon in the future. Could you say a little bit about how you're doing that?
Can I have a show of hands who knows what additionality means? Okay.
Could get a masterclass here.
No, not at all. But it's good to see several hands go up. If you did that to a room full of farmers, nobody would know what you're talking about. Okay. So we're looking. We've got to prove additionality. So basically, changing what we're doing already or have done to increase carbon ongoing. So we've got to verify that and put plans in place. So we're moving actually to foliar feeding of plants to improve yields, improve photosynthesis, which will then drive your carbon stocks in the soil. So it's a process, but we have to see the improvements, and that's the key thing, is incentivizing change. And if we can be paid for some of these carbon credits or extract it from the supply chain, because the supermarkets or the cooperative farmer or the farmers' customers have to somehow get that value from the market, because they're not going to want to pay for it themselves. So we have to somehow get this value from the supply chain. That's going to be the tricky bit.
No, thank you on that. And I think probably, I was going to ask this question later, but I think I'm going to ask it now, and probably conflate it with some coming in from the audience. But it's to do with that supply chain support, because certainly in my work at FCT, we work with food businesses that are wanting to make good on their commitments under SBTI. And I think when they made those commitments many years ago, they didn't realise the extent of their exposure to Scope 3 on farms. So that they're wanting to make that, help their farmers to make the change. But my question is, how have you found your customers are supporting you to farm in more sustainable ways? Carlo, start with you, because I know when we were talking last Monday, you were talking about this.
Yes, we're talking about this. For us, we are involved to speak with the wine customer, to speak what carbon farming and regenerative viticulture is. It's a good question, argument for the young people, because it's more, we prefer to speak young generation about climate change, about soil health, and also regenerative viticulture. It's very important to speak about, to improve our brandness to the consumer, to have a good revenue for our estate.
Yeah, and I'll just sort of add to that a little bit, Carlo, because this morning, I think it was Kurt Vandenberg was talking about needing to provide sort of value to society in order that society would help support this change. And certainly, do you think that that your customers are also looking to get the message across to their customers about the changes you are making? Is that? Yeah, I've spoken too fast, haven't I, Carlo? Sorry. Yeah. I'm going to ask Stathis, in terms of your olive oil customers, are they supporting you?
Yes. We see the last years a lot of customers, they want to know about all the proceeds of the olive oil. So we saw they starting to want to know how we make the olive oil and how organic it is, and general about all the proceeds. So now we are start, and I see that. So this make us to find more organic solutions, or to make the production more organic.
More organic?
Yes, more organic. Because we saw the customers, they want this, they prefer this from the other olive oils. Sometimes it's very clear, this to us.
Okay, thanks, Stathis. That's really interesting, actually, more organic than organic. Andrew, yes. What about Arla? They're your main customer.
Yeah, so Arla are a farmer cooperative anyway, but they're working incredibly hard for the members in helping them improve their carbon footprints. But then they've got really good working partnerships with their customers, the supermarkets. Most UK supermarkets now would be involved in regenerative type projects and looking at projects to improve carbon footprints, basically. So I've been involved with a couple already, where we're looking at herbal lays and carbon sequestration as well, and looking at best policy of modelling those figures. But we have to work with the full supply chain, because the buck is going to stop with the farmer, because we're the only people that can actually make that difference to them in that supply chain for the largest number.
Mm.
in the wine market at this moment, it's only the North Europe market involved in project like viticulture, sustainable production, and regenerative. In the other part of the world, in USA and a little bit in Canada, are not interested at this moment at this project. The Northern Europe is the market. They are involved in this production.
Okay. No, thank you. I know that certainly in the UK, I think dairy companies are leading the way, where they're asking farmers to do things, but in return, they do get a higher price for what they're producing, so that there is some kind of contract going on there, really. But obviously, it's there to help those businesses to meet their commitments as well. So, Kirsten this morning was talking about risk and insurance, and quite frankly, she scared me witless when she talked about the fact that businesses will become uninsurable. But I wondered that my question really is about how you see risk now that, as you change farming practice, whether that's changed your farm's level of riskiness, if you like. So is it more resilient as a result of the changes that you're making? I don't know who wants to start on this one. Resilience?
So, yeah, resilience. And I'm thinking back again to Kirsten's curve, and I'm almost on the good bit again. You do go through different stages of risk averseness, or bank managers' risk averseness anyway. So, you take a risk at the start of your business career, and you want your bank to help fund you, and then you go through a stage you're making good money, and you can cruise. But then as you get older, you don't want to take that risk because you might be losing it again, or you think, well, actually, I'm going to push the next generation to go again. I think carbon farming or regenerative farming, whatever you want to call it, it is about risk averseness, or managing risk is probably the better term. And if we can keep those risks down, you're going to be resilient. You can weather the storm. You can weather shocks of bad winters or bad governments or whatever else is happening in the world by having a simple system that is repeatable and resilient is key.
I'm very much minded your comment about removing your reliance on artificial fertilizers, more or less, because clearly you've managed to make your business more resilient to price shocks from fertilizer, which is quite significant. What about Stathis for you, farming in Greece? You've got climate changes coming along.
Yes, the risk. So about the risk, I don't think the risk has changed.
Okay.
When we adopt these new practices, we spend money, our money, not the government money or something else. Our money. I think that is the risk, because we make all this, we put our money in our business to make our product more organic, more. So we face the same risk and before now. The only risk is, how can I say that? Never, you don't know. You spend money for your own business, and you are waiting to take it back to. Yes, take the money back. I think that's the big risk of all.
So you have to invest first.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we invest every year, not one investment. Every year we invest our money in our business.
Okay, thanks, Stathis. What about Carlo?
I think that in this context of climate change and decreasing the soil fertility, the big risk is not adopted this practice of carbon farming and regenerative viticulture.
Right, so what you're saying is the bigger risk is not to change?
Yes.
Right, because?
Because in this context of climate change, the production go down, and the soil fertility also go down, and it's a very big risk for all the farmers all around the world.
Okay, that's very clear and absolutely eloquent. Certainly, so to do nothing is more risky than to change farming practice. Okay. With that, I've got a really good question from somebody in the audience, and it's to do with the role of public support to overcome really, they asked to overcome all the barriers we've been talking about, but I think also potentially what is the role of public support to kickstart this change? Because on the one hand, we've got you saying, Carlo, that to do nothing is not an option, but also at the moment, if a farmer has to risk their own investment first, not knowing whether it's going to work or not, that's quite a barrier. So what role do we all think should be there for public support, whether that be international, national, or local? And I appreciate that's probably a bit more of a tough question when you're at the front line of being a farmer. So I don't know. I mean, Carlo.
Yeah, the public support is important to develop a project like VitiCaSe to share the good practices for the future. Is I think is the right support is to finance project. European project, national project, regional project, to share this type of management.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and that can act at all levels. Presumably it would be implemented locally, but it could be paid for nationally or at EU level. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Has anybody got any other thoughts on how this should be done?
I think having live projects that people can go and see in the real world what difference it can make. I'm aware that in Ireland they did a discussion group network that farmers, if they wanted to get, I think it was Pillar 2 of the old European funding, some of that money was taken away from them, but they could get it back if they attended a discussion group. You had to attend, say, 8 meetings out of 10 a year. If you incentivize the farmer to get off farm, which is the difficult bit, to a well-funded network to see practical things going on, then they will adopt change. But you have to get farmers off farm. That's the tricky thing.
Mm. Thanks, Andrew. Stathis?
I agree with this. I don't have something else. Okay. Yes. I don't, if I can think.
No. Well, I'll tell you what, while you're thinking, Stathis, I'm going to take chair's prerogative here, because certainly at Farm Carbon Toolkit, we've been involved with the Farm Net Zero project for the past 5 years, and it has effectively worked with the same group of farmers over that 5-year period. And I think that the biggest thing that any public sector support can do is to support farmers from where they're at, not just with numbers, but also, and this is the expensive part to start with, it's actually providing people to sit down with farmers, to look at their farms, and to help them to understand what the best practices are for them. Because if you think about it, 5 years ago, we probably didn't have a shopping list of practices, but we do now.
Yes, and I want to add, for all farmers, you know, because sometimes only big farmers have this access to all these in my region, as I said, we have a lot of small farmers, and they don't have the access to the information, to the project, so they support the government, the EU, I don't know who, they have to support all farmers. I don't know how exactly to say that. So this,
Yeah.
this is.
Okay. And I don't know whether that helped to answer the questioner who raised that question, whether it's more than one person in the audience, because I certainly, in the UK, there's a big focus at the moment on wanting to understand every farm's emissions, you know, to have those numbers. And I'm sure all of the countries in the EU will have a national inventory and they'll be trying to work out their national emissions. Well, we're certainly doing that in the UK. But the bit that's really important is what does that mean? And I think for farmers, it's wrong to assume that they have all that knowledge at their fingertips, because up until a few years ago, there was no mechanism for providing any of that information. So it's very, but it's at the same time, and Andrew hasn't mentioned it, but I will, it's actually about peer-to-peer learning as well, because farmers will listen to other farmers, and actually, in my experience, there's no better way than going on to somebody's farm who's doing a reasonable job, not necessarily the best job in the world, but somebody who can explain what they've done and why, and then other farmers can ask questions and they can kick the tires or whatever they want to do, but it just helps to make it real. And I think that's the biggest thing we have to be able to do now in the next few years, is make it real for farmers so they can see that there is a way to do this without compromising their profitability. Because, I mean, I think we've all said it, but the first thing that will be at the forefront of any farm business's mind, or any farmer's mind, is how will this affect my business financial sustainability? And it always ever has to be. We'd all be the same if we were asked to do something different. Farmers are no different. So we're kind of, if you've got more questions, my phone, I'm going to say something which is really daft. My phone is locked with my fingerprint, so I can unlock it with my fingerprint. But unfortunately, because I've been lambing sheep for the last 4 weeks, I've lost my fingerprint. So I have to put in my code every time, which makes it a lot slower, I can tell you. So, yeah, we're sort of, I've got one more question I would like to ask from our conversations, and then we'll just roll into some more of the questions on here. And in fact, I think they probably go together. So somebody has asked the question about the role of innovation in carbon farming. And I guess what would be helpful to know, and I think by that, I suspect they might mean sort of technological innovation, whether that be remote sensing or automation of any sort. So I don't know whether you can sort of think about whether innovation in that way has helped you at all. They're not rushing. Any thought? I tell you, the one you can talk about is your ear tags on your cows.
Oh, yeah. So I was a very low-cost, spend-nothing type of farmer, and we were very hesitant to adopt a lot of innovation, but we've actually put collars monitoring our cow health. And that has given us so much more detail that we even did some projects on monitoring rumination of cows in different groups, but across different crops, to see if there's a difference between herbal lays and whatever. But it allows you to bring a lot more accuracy. And we're actually now just starting another little project now, actually using SAP analysis to increase lipid levels in our grass to hopefully improve the balance of feed of grass, which predominantly the nutritionists will say has too much protein, but actually if we can balance that feed naturally and get our soil working, it's going to help animal health, and then nutrition, again, we will improve it, the nutrition of our food that we're producing, but also the crop and the soil health. through understanding what's going through precision technology.
Okay, thank you. And Carlo, anything in?
Yeah, innovation, it's important to support this project. We use a tool to monitoring biodiversity in our state. It's a new tool with the application of artificial intelligence, and it's very useful to measuring the result of these practices.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's interesting. Do you know what? I was going to ask a question about AI, but you've mentioned it. Do you think, Carlo, that AI is going to be helpful to you in the future?
Yes. I think it's important to elaborate all the data you have about measuring and EA is helpful for elaborating this data and for implementing new practices in the future.
Yeah. Okay. No, that's really interesting. Thank you. And Stathis, from your experience, have you embraced any technologies to help?
I think yes.
Okay.
I have some technologies, but as I said, we're at the beginning. We are starting now. We don't know yet how technologies are going to help us. I think maybe the next 2 years I have a better answer for this. I think. I hope so.
Okay. No, thanks, Stathis. I'm sort of conscious that on this panel we've got a massive range of starting to implement practices from just starting to almost 20 years ago. So, but actually that's great because you can see the change over time, which is really helpful. I've got two final, so almost killer questions, really. I'll ask the first one, which is mine, and then I'll ask one from the audience. So this first one is, would you continue with the farming practices you've adopted, even if there was no help available externally? Would you continue with the farming practices you've adopted, even if nobody was paying you?
Yes.
Yes. Sure. Is that a yes? Yeah. Yes. Okay. So, I mean, I think it's really important to ask that question, though, because it really does sort of, if you like, tell us where the farmers who have been almost helped to take these practices on, and I think, Carla, you said it, there's not really any option because we have to change anyway, because what we have been doing doesn't work as well as it used to in the face of climate change, extreme weather events, everything that we're facing. I mean, Andrew mentioned it at the start, but I happen to also farm in the southwest of England, and we literally had nothing but rain and grey skies for 2 months. And we didn't measure rainfall in millimetres, not even centimetres. But yeah, well, back to good old inches and feet in my case. But yeah, but it was a lot. And I think that means that change is not a nice to have, it's a necessity. Are you going to say something?
And I think it's a time now to make this change. Now, we have to do it now. All these changes, we have to make them now. We start from now. You know, the climate, in my area, we start to understand now the climate change. And a lot of people, they don't understand, neither now. But the most of them, they start understanding that the climate change now, and they scared. In a few years, they told to me, the weather is getting hotter. I don't want if I will be able to cultivate in a few years, and they do all these questions all the time, because as a farmer, I'm an agronomist, so they ask me a lot. So,
Yeah.
yes.
Lovely, thanks, Dathis. And I think you're absolutely right. And I'm reminded again of Kirsten's graph where we've got to about 4 degrees, and if we're going to get it back, we've really got to reduce emissions quickly. Just before I ask my final killer question, is there anybody sitting in the audience that's sitting on a question that they haven't managed to get onto Slido? Because now's your chance to put up your hand, because we're near. Yep.
I don't have a question, just I want to give you a perspective of another farmer from Greece.
Oh,
Okay?
lovely.
But not now, when you finish your
Okay,
questions,
we'll
because
come.
I want 5 minutes at least.
Okay.
5 minutes.
Look, thank you very much. That would be lovely. Yeah. Any other sort of questions from the floor? Somebody, you're standing there with ready poised. I think we did produce quite a sort of comprehensive list of questions, I think. So the final question, which I think is probably in light of the need for, how was it termed by Kirsten, exponential change. And that is a big word, because I've worked in a number of roles over the last 40 years in agriculture, the last 5 years with Farm Carbon Toolkit, very much focusing on how we can in agriculture reduce emissions. I think we're quite often held back to really understand just what farmers have already done by our national inventories, because certainly if you look at the UK, yes, we've reduced emissions since 1990, but actually that's only happened because ruminant livestock numbers have gone down, because our measuring systems aren't granular enough to properly take account for farming practice change. And the farming practice change that will be necessary to create that exponential change, both in terms of emissions reductions and also carbon removals, will be significant. So I'm coming to my question. So could you tell us, everybody, the one thing that you believe is would be the most effective thing that could be done to ensure that farmers take up carbon farming? The one thing that would be most effective to really help them to make the exponential change that every sector in society is going to have to make. First thought, really.
That is a big question.
I know.
We've got a massive advantage as carbon farming in that it's a natural solution with exponential, big word, for potential to offset all these carbon emissions. If we can grow soil and account for that, we won't need all these machines and carbon dioxide and filling up mines with carbon dioxide. Let's keep the general public on side that us adopting carbon farming will improve everyone's lives long term.
And just to be absolutely clear, Andrew, you just said grow soil. You didn't say get more carbon into soil, did you? Did you mean that?
I mean grow soil.
Yeah.
I mean increase your soil levels. Organic matter, we can grow soils. That is not accounted for at the moment.
No. I don't know, is that something that everybody's familiar with in the audience? Yeah. And it is about creating more depth of soil rather than trying to ram more carbon into the soil that's already there. Yeah, and certainly at FCT we work a lot on soil health and how to grow soil. Okay, so the one thing, Carlo, that you would recommend?
Yeah, in the future, the people in the world increase and the fertility of the soil decrease. We can change the soil fertility. it's very important to increase the soil fertility for produce all the vegetable for the people, all the production for the people. And carbon farming, regenerative agriculture is the right activities to improve the soil fertility all around the world.
Okay, lovely, thank you. So it's soil health, so yeah. And finally, Stathis, what would your recommendation be?
We will need soil fertility because we need more products. We have a lot of more people around the world, so we have to give them food. So we have to find the way to do better the soil in general. That's my...
Okay. Do you know what? Thank you, all three of you, for that answer, because I'd asked about carbon farming and all three of you went immediately to soil. So, you know, and I think that very much speaks to how farmers see this topic. They don't necessarily think about cramming carbon into soil. They think about soil functionality and how they can improve it, whether that be, as you say, through trees or however it's done. I'm really conscious that, I'm going to stand up, I'm really conscious that I'm keeping you from lunch at this point, but I'd really like to thank Carlo, Andrew and Stathis for really, I think, helping us to have a better understanding of how farmers see this topic and how they're reacting to it, really. I'd also like to thank the three organisations, well, certainly two organisations, ImageLine and Tagus, who put forward proposals to run this session, because I think it's a really important session, and I'm thinking it's happening throughout the conference, which is very much bringing the voice of farmers into this conference, because I'm conscious that there are probably not that many farmers here, but it's really important that we hear from them. So I think, you know, thank you very much to our panellists. And finally, thank you to all of you for sitting so patiently. I was trying to work out whether it was actually because you couldn't work out how to get up, because it's a long time, an hour and a half, but it felt like it went really quickly to us. So I hope it felt like a useful conversation to yourselves as well. So I think give yourselves a clap as well. Okay, I think lunch is downstairs, or probably everywhere, actually. Well done. Well done.
Thank you very much.
I think we need a group hug.
Thank you very much.
Well done.
Well done, Stathis.
Well done. Good job.
Oh yeah, we need a photo, don't we?
Yes,
For the